What up, y'all? Welcome to episode 2, and we are still on the subject of helping you guys find a better job. So, I'm going to recap a couple of things from the previous episode, and we're going to talk about some new stuff here today. We're going to start with what questions will you be asked? I mentioned this before that one of my favorite questions to ask people is what happened at your last job? What I've definitely noticed from many interviews in my time is that if there's a big gap of employment, people have left that there either because they job hopped and went to many different opportunities in a short period of time, or they didn't have the care to update their resume and make sure it was up to date. Either two of those items are not necessarily ideal, but you can definitely get around the answers to them. And what I definitely value as a hiring manager from time to time is honesty. So when I ask the question, what made you leave your last job? If you were fired, the person who's going to come to me and say, hey, you know what? I had a bad attitude, or I did this, I did that, but I learned my lesson and it really sucked. And I'm here today as a better man or a better woman trying to level myself up in life, is going to be so out of the ordinary, so different from the average potential employee that I'm more than likely going to go out on a limb. One of the most unique gaps in employment that I've ever dealt with was actually somebody who works for me still that went to prison for a period of time. I think I was just mostly floored when they were honest with me and they told me, yo, I went away, I did my time, but I learned my lesson and that's not the life that I want to live today. 100% that person who still works with me today has proved that to me and everybody else in our organization. Honesty sometimes is the best policy. If you're the type of person that does have that gap in employment because you were fired and you haven't learned your lesson, you don't have any personal accountability, and I really hope not. This channel might not be for you. I really want it to be for you because I do believe that this channel is meant to help every single person. So if you ever found yourself in a situation where you dropped the ball, the most important thing is to own it. Understand where it came from, that mistakes are made. You're a human being and it's okay to be honest. Another common question is, why should we hire you? This is one of the most uncomfortable questions to be asked because most people really try to be humble. I think a lot of people have a hard time answering the question because they don't like the idea of selling themselves. So a great answer to this question, if I ever asked this, would be, hey, look, I'm a good dude. I bring good energy. I'm here to learn. I'm trainable. I'm coachable. The reason why you should hire me is because I'll prove that I can become an asset to your team. Something along those lines. As uncomfortable as that question is, that's what the employer is looking for. If you did leave your last job because you didn't like it, it's okay to be honest. When we ask this question, what made you leave your last job? The real answer is, well, it sucked. I didn't like the type of work I did. I didn't like my manager. You have to be delicate about how you answer that question. If you spend the next 10 minutes talking crap about your previous employer, your current or your prospective future employer, which is who you're interviewing with right now, is going to assume you'll do the same thing about them, and it becomes a bad look. So if your reason for leaving your last job was that you weren't happy there and you felt like you tapped out, share that with your employer and let them know that, hey, it wasn't my vibe, it wasn't the right fit, and I left on good terms, I left on bad terms, whatever it is. But believe me when I say this, so many applicants right now are tempted every time to not be honest, that's majority of the time what we're hit with is a dishonest answer. We know the difference, and honesty is something that's going to make us all pause and see your value. Another one of the most uncomfortable questions you're going to be asked is, why do you want this job? It's almost exactly like, why should we hire you? Because now you're sitting here trying to sell yourself. And I'm going to be honest, I don't typically ask this question because I recognize that we don't pay $100,000 a year. You likely need this job because you need money. You got to pay rent and you have to put food on the table. That's the real answer. But when you're asked, why do you want this job? Then this is where a little bit of due diligence comes in. Hopefully before the interview, you've looked up the company, you've looked up what they do. Everything is available on Google. You figured out what it is that you like about that job and just share a couple quick facts. Like, hey, I know that you guys are in the botanical space and I love herbs and spices and I love to cook. And I think it's really interesting that you guys work with some of these products. Share something that's relatable to the company that you're applying to. It goes a long way. That's basically the only answer that you need. Potential employers asking you all the questions. It is going to set you apart if you can come to the table with a couple of questions for the potential employer. So I love it when applicants ask me questions. Some of the questions I like to hear from people are, what is a day in the life of the job? It gives me an opportunity to kind of explain to that person what it is that's going to be expected of them and what kind of workplace they're going to work in. Another really great question that you should ask at any interview is, what is the culture of this workplace. Getting to know what kind of team you're going to be involved in. Does this place make a lot of jokes? Do they do any team outings? Are there things that you should know? Shows me that you want this job and that you're dialed in and you bring it and you're not afraid to ask questions. Because the people who are afraid to ask questions are afraid to speak up when they're uncomfortable with something. Person who is sitting at the other side of the table from me, asking me questions, shows me so much more than the typical applicant. And it shows me that they're not going to be afraid to learn, grow, or ask questions. Moving into the next part of this, what I want to explain to you guys is a little bit behind the mindset of the hiring manager that you're talking with. When you go on an interview, I want you to know that most interviewers are lazy. They're looking for somebody who's going to be plug and play. Why? They want someone who's going to step in and know exactly how to do every single thing. It's lazy because they don't want to have to put the time and effort into training you. And I always think that that's probably the crappiest way to go about looking for applicants. I firmly believe that nobody that comes to work for me today comes from such an experience base that they don't need any training. What do I really want from somebody when they apply? I want to know that they have an amazing attitude, that when faced with adversity, they can rise to the occasion and challenge themselves to figure it out, that I'm going to get somebody who cares. If you bring those three things to the table, I don't give a crap what I have to train you on. I know you can learn it. And I believe that the other person on the side of this camera today can figure out literally anything. You can learn anything you want to, and you can be good at anything you put your mind to as long as you're willing to try hard and care. And that's what's missing in today's society. Most people don't care. Most people want great things in life without the expectation placed on themselves that they'll have to put forward great efforts. So I want you guys to understand that if you're stepping into your first interview or your 50th interview, that hiring manager is likely looking for somebody who's plug and play. And if you're not that plug and play guy, then your next best bet is to show them that you have the will and the skill that you can cultivate to become an ass kicker in that potential role. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about different subjects here, and I always want to make sure that things are very relatable. Most jobs for the relatable side that are going to be unskilled, they're not going to necessarily want that plug and play scenario because you're not applying to be an engineer, right? You're applying to work at Chick-fil-A or Wendy's or McDonald's or in a warehouse, an Amazon fulfillment center. Those hiring managers have enough experience around the block to understand that they're not necessarily looking for what's on your resume. They're looking for what you brought to the interview today. And that's going to be your attitude, like we mentioned before. Is this person going to have honesty, integrity? Are they going to care? Are they going to have a good coachable attitude when I bring a point of criticism to them? What kind of individual am I bringing and exposing my team to? Somebody who's going to be an asset or a liability. And I believe that everyone watching this video can be an asset. Will you show up? Will you care? Will you try hard? Those are the simplest ways to put it. Those three components for the unskilled job are really all that matters in life anyway. So even when you're trying to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and apply for a job that's above your pay grade and above your skill set, if you can drive those three things home, I promise you, you have a better chance than you realize. Myself, in my past life, working in a different industry, I felt trapped. My ego wouldn't allow me to apply for a job that was a little bit of a pay decrease or less than lateral move, right? I always wanted to push myself to go up. And I know in my heart of hearts that if another employer had given me an opportunity to work in a role that was above my current pay grade, that I would have shined without question. But the unfortunate reality was that I didn't even get the interviews. And I kept on trying and I kept on trying and I kept on trying. I had spent 6 years of my life working for one employer from the bottom to the top. And it was an amazing opportunity. When I ended up leaving, I cut my pay in less than half and went on to make the best money of my life. Self-confidence is so important. There's one thing that I want you guys to get from these videos, that every single thing that you want for yourself is obtainable, but it's going to take effort. Nothing in life is going to come easy. I was desperate going on these interviews, the ones that I could get, not getting the job that I knew that I would crush. And I wish I could have listened to some of this advice now, because I feel that if I had conveyed that I was willing to learn, I had a great attitude that I was going to bring every day, I might have gotten a couple opportunities. Didn't come my way. But as it is, life happens the way that it happens. And I like to believe that everything happens for a reason. So I'm here today talking to you right now because of all the events that led up to this point, and I'm grateful for them. Your number one job when you show up to an interview is to prove that you're the person who, if faced with adversity or unknowing, will overcome. If you can get those points across that you, and it's not complicated, guys. I just hired somebody that's got a charming personality. I know that she didn't come with a huge skill set, but she was nice and she was friendly. She had a good attitude. She brought that with her when she walked through the door. She absolutely got the job. I wasn't looking at her past experience and going, oh, I don't know. She doesn't know how to use the UPS shipping portal. No, instead, she came through and I'm like, yo, this is all coachable. She's got a great attitude. She's bilingual. She's going to fold right into our culture and be a no brainer. And she's honestly been amazing thus far. I see this stuff all the time with people that come through my doors, and I can read it a mile away. If you don't have hobbies and you haven't developed yourself, you're basically going through life expecting grand things with no effort. That's not how this works. You know, maybe some people get to win the lottery, but most people who win the lottery and didn't have anything backing that up have lost it within a couple of years' time. So what I'm saying here is this: as you develop yourself, better opportunities will come. If you cultivate habits and hobbies, things that round you out as a person, you're going to have a much more beautiful life. But if you go through your day going to the job that you don't like, putting in the bare minimum, you crack your beer open, you drink a 6-pack or a 12-pack every night, you sit and watch sports every night, let me tell you something, you're not going to get very far. It's not going to be a fulfilled life. And one day you're going to wake up when you're 55 years old. You're not going to have life skills. You're not going to have good friendships. You're not going to have hobbies. And it's going to be a whole mess of unfulfillment for you. I don't want that for you. And I'm really hoping that those who are watching these videos right now are ready to make a pivot in their life. They're ready to try and be a better version of themselves. And I don't care if you're 19 years old or 99 years old. This advice is still relevant. I have met people who have pivoted their life in their 70s. They've learned new skills, taken on new career paths, and cultivated new relationships that have made them more fulfilled and happier. If you don't have hobbies, and I see this a lot, usually the answer when I ask that question is, I like sports, I like video games, I like to go out drinking with my friends. What that really tells me is that at the bare minimum, when you have a rough day, you have nothing to fall back on. So when you're bored and you're at work and you're trying to get through the day, you wish it would end sooner, you're only thinking about turning on your Xbox when you get home. You're thinking about the 6 beers you want to crush when you get off work. You want to think about going out and partying. You're not thinking about having a nice evening with your partner. You're not thinking about the workout that you're going to crush the next day. I know that it sounds easier said than done, but for me, when I was younger, I was really lost. I was with the wrong group of friends and I was making really bad decisions. I spent a few years of my life under the influence of a wide variety of different substances. I remember being in the back of my neighborhood, sitting in my car, smoking weed, and asking myself, what do I want to do with my life? I was a kid who had so much promise, and here I am smoking a bowl in my car, completely clueless. Meanwhile, kids that I went to high school with, they're off at college, they're posting pictures of their parties on Facebook. It looks like they're living the time of their life, and I'm depressed, alone, unhappy, anxiety ridden. One thing I remembered was that when I was younger, I did martial arts. I didn't have the money to go back to the dojo and train, but there was a community gym that I could go to. So I tried it 3 days a week. I started working out. I had no idea what I was doing. I would go into the gym and I would hit literally every muscle group in one workout. But I noticed that after my workouts, I felt more motivated, more positive, and in a better mood. And that for me was my first hobby. As you can tell, I like to work out. It's been a part of my life for the last 15 years, and I truly believe I wouldn't be here today talking to you guys if I hadn't taken the leap and started my first hobby. And you see it happen all the time with the fitness influencers. They're young, they like the working out, they think that this is their life calling, so they jump in, they grab a tripod, and they go to the gym and block off the dumbbell rack from anybody being able to walk around. But hey, you know what? If that's your hobby, I love it. I respect it. Exercise is not just for the body, it's for the mind first. It has definitely helped me process all of my stress, all of my painful points and emotions. And so when I talk to you guys about self-development, I really truly believe that that's the next best step for you guys to have a better and happier life. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something I learned in a book that I can't remember the name of. This was many years ago. There's a rock star and there's a superstar. Every organization is looking for one or the other. A rock star is a person who's great at the guitar. They do the guitar really well. And a superstar can sing, can dance, can play the guitar. There are people that I bring on board to my organizations that I expect will grow and can be coached and molded and brought up to the next level. And there are those that I know are great placeholders and they do an excellent job where they're at. And the battle that I have on my hands is when that rock star wants to be a superstar. Sometimes it's really hard to get them to pick up that extra skill. But we need rock stars and we need superstars. Which one you will be is entirely up to you. Fortunately, you may know this from past jobs that if you do something really, really well, your employer oftentimes doesn't want to move you out of that position because you're a rock star and you're dependable and you're consistent. And those are things that we need in our organization. But your employer owes it to you to say, hey, if this is your goal and this is what you want to do and this is how you want to grow, then I'm willing to put effort into you to make sure that you can achieve that and can become a superstar. So to recap, guys, it's not just a one-way street. It's a two-way street when you go on these interviews. I want you guys to be comfortable with the questions that are going to come your way and remember to focus on honesty and ownership of any mistakes that you might have had, not represented or represented on your resume. And I also want you guys to ask questions of the interviewer so that you know what kind of job you're stepping into and it shows that you're active and involved. If you don't have any hobbies right now, it could be as simple as getting a bicycle and riding the bike every day. Fitness is a great first starting point for you to cultivate yourself. From there, you're going to bloom and flourish. When you're feeling stressed out about the interview that's coming up, just remember that the most important thing is your attitude and make sure that you convey that you've got an amazing attitude when it comes time to get that job. When it comes time to show up, make sure that you stay true to your commitment because the first person we make a commitment to is ourselves. And if we can't trust the word that we give to ourselves, then nobody can really trust us. And that's how we break the relationship that we have with ourselves. So it's super important that when you do decide to take a step in the right direction, that you uphold your commitment to yourself and you trust the person you see in the mirror. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, drop them below and shoot us a subscription. Have a great day.